thank you everyone for joining our December session today. We've got some good materials. We'll go through some upcoming events, some more samples and demos shown by the community. We also have a portion that will cover all of the Teams and Power Platform development. So I've got it lined up. But yeah, so thank you guys for joining. And so, the first thing kind of on our docket today is kind of to go over an upcoming event. And Daisy, I see that you're online. So do you want to kind of go over the event that's scheduled for tomorrow?
Yes, that'd be great. Thanks, June. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be on this call. This is my first time on a call like this. I am a relatively new program manager for M365 Cloud Advocacy here at Microsoft. And our team, along with some of the Microsoft Teams engineers, we're putting on an event that's tomorrow. So this is perfect timing. It's a 2-hour live stream, so pretty short, not a huge commitment. So hopefully we can see you there. It's all around developing apps for Teams. So kind of the opportunity, some updates. We'll have a nice opening discussion with Isabella Lubin, who is a PM for Teams engineering. We'll have some awesome demos around integrating web apps into Teams, and then some sessions and discussions around just basic concepts, how to use VS Code, how to use the toolkit, the Yeoman generator, and really embed your web app and use the capabilities that Teams provides. So all of the Microsoft Cloud advocates for M365, along with Teams engineers, will be on this live stream event, doing it live, coding with you. There will be prizes as well, which I feel like is always gets everyone's ears perked up. We have a Teams Learn Challenge happening at the end of the event. So essentially, if you go to the challenge and walk through various Learn modules in Microsoft Learn, you have a chance to win awesome prizes and digital swag. So some of those prizes include Xbox Game Passes, various subscriptions. You might have a chance to win a one-on-one consult with us at Microsoft. So I will put all of the links in the chat for how you can learn more. It's on the screen as well at aka.ms/learntogether. And really, we just want to learn with you and kind of have a conversation by developers for developers all around developing for Teams. So I'll put some links in the chat. And if you have any questions around the event, feel free to just ping me and I will respond as best as I can. And we also have watch parties, as I see Hugo just put in the chat. If you want to join a watch party and watch with other people, you can. Looks like Hugo has a nice link for you there. So thank you all, and I hope to see you tomorrow. It's at 9 a.m. Pacific, by the way. That's a key piece of information.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daisy. I think I heard the word prizes like 5 times. So if y'all want to win some prizes, please do show up tomorrow and just go to aka.ms/learntogether. Great. So thank you, Daisy. And then moving on to our next topic, Wes, do you want to kind of go over the Power Platform stuff?
Sure thing. All right. We'll get started here. Thanks for joining, everyone. Excited to join this awesome community to talk a little bit about the latest developments with Teams and Power Platform. I'm assuming most people have seen or heard by now the news about Microsoft Dataverse for Teams. If not, it's something that has been in the works for quite a while. You've probably seen it under a few different names, but essentially this is bringing all the rich value of what was known as the Common Data Service and embedding that within Teams. And what this allows is apps and bots built on Power Platform that can be built right within the Teams interface and then also deployed in just a few clicks. So it's something that we're really excited about. For those of you who might be a little bit less familiar with Teams and Power Platform value in particular, I'm sure you're all very familiar with Teams. Power Platform is the low-code set of tools built on essentially what is the infrastructure of Dynamics 365. And what this allows is it provides a platform for people to really build robust interconnected data structures on the back end and then surface those through different types of interfaces like apps and chatbots, also running workflows in the back end. And so we think this is a really powerful tool for both what we've coined kind of in the past, the citizen developer or citizen maker, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where we have our full stack devs. And we think it's a really interesting opportunity to kind of create what we're now calling these fusion development teams, where we're bringing the best of what pro devs can do and combining that with some of the business insights that citizen developers have. And beyond that, more just providing almost leverage or scale to what a professional developer can deliver. So I'll talk more about that in a second. Specifically, what's new in the past few months, we've built on top of what is that CDS backend or Dataverse for Teams, there's also a new Powerapps app for Teams. So that app allows folks to go right into Teams. You can do it right in the Teams interface, and you can go in and you can create Dataverse tables. You can actually build the user interface for the apps using the low-code tools in Powerapps. And there's also some enhanced features, like we're improving things like app responsiveness in Teams. So the actual UI will be responsive to screen size and things like that a little bit more easily than it has been in the past. The other thing that I'd really like to call out is the investments we're making in Teams plus Power Automate. A lot of times we like to talk about apps because it's a very visual thing. It's easy to see and understand, but automation is a hugely valuable tool for a lot of businesses. And so we're really excited about kind of the approvals processes and some of the improved just notification features that are being provided by Power Automate. And then lastly is Power Virtual Agents, which is low-code chatbot platform. The really great thing there, in addition to everything I talked about with new integrations and new apps and all of that, it's really just the fact that we're now providing value to Microsoft 365 and Office 365 license holders to utilize Power Virtual Agents capabilities within Teams at no additional cost. So they don't have to go and purchase a license from the Power Platform. We can start to build bots right within Teams that folks can use without an additional license. Something that professional developer community, I would assume is especially interested in is, what do I do with all of the data that is being generated from these new apps and processes that we're building? So there are now ways with a TDS endpoint to connect to your data in Dataverse for Teams to Power BI. And that's something we're really excited about, because when we talk about the Power Platform, we like to talk about it as a closed loop. So you're building apps, those apps are generating data from people's operations and their activities, same with workflows, and then being able to close the loop and generate insights from all of that data using Power BI. So we're really excited about the opportunities here and being able to actually access that with some SQL queries. Something that we think is also great about this new added value for Power Platform is the ability to distribute apps more easily. So the integrations that Dataverse for Teams and the Powerapps app has with Teams, we think it makes it even easier and there's less friction in the process of deploying apps. So instead of having to go into AppSource or going to App Studio and having to deploy apps that way, being able to deploy in just a few clicks, we know that that can actually drive more usage because it is just a more seamless process. You can deploy your apps more quickly. It's easier to do that deployment process. And a lot of the controls that we've set up using Powerapps allows you kind of that more seamless process of distributing, particularly if it's departmental-based custom solutions. If you're just trying to distribute to a particular group of people, it's easier to push those apps to particular teams using the Powerapps platform. There's a number of security and governance features that we like to highlight. This again is when you're thinking about some of the professional development end of the spectrum. when you're thinking about some of the additional work that has to go into security and governance, having a lot of these things already taken care of and knowing that you're kind of building in the safe place of a Microsoft environment just creates that extra level of trust for whatever solutions are being deployed. I think I've covered most of that. The one bullet that I'd like to highlight on this slide, and it kind of actually connects to this slide as well, is what we're really excited about for the professional developer community in general. And this is feedback we've heard from many conversations. I've heard personally from many conversations I've had, is that building with Power Apps or Power Platform in general is really advantageous for the professional developer community because it essentially allows for things like proof of concept with a lighter lift. So when you're actually trying to build out something for a customer and you're really just at that proof of concept stage, the fact that you can build a UI just via graphical user interface, you can kind of just quickly deploy the data backend for a test, makes this a really interesting product to accelerate that the development cycle. So being able to go to a customer and say, is this the thing that's going to work for you? Yes or no? What do we need to tweak? Instead of having to spend a lot of hours actually kind of building that out, just being able to drag and drop some boxes around like a PowerPoint slide makes it much easier to get that yay or nay on whether we move forward with that the more full and robust application. So we think that this is a really interesting opportunity to accelerate that development lifecycle. There's another interesting component that I like to highlight for folks out there that are comfortable with using kind of full stack development tools. And that's something for Dataverse for Teams called, that we've actually unlocked, which is a connector for Azure API management. If you're familiar with all of the connectors that are available to Microsoft Power Platform, essentially there's a set of premium connectors that you have to buy an additional license for, and there's a set of connectors that come with your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 license. So those, the ones that come with the seeded value in an Office 365 or Microsoft 365 license are typically limited to just the other apps within Office 365. So you can connect to SharePoint data, you can connect to Excel or whatever. But what we're really excited about is with this Azure APIM connector, you're actually able to build custom connectors to data that's stored in Azure. So any of the Microsoft customers out there who have systems that are built in Azure, custom systems and things like that, and they store all of that data in Azure, you can now go in and actually hook in to those systems with this new connector, and then you can surface it. So when we've talked about citizen developers, you can surface that connector as available to anyone in the organization. So if you have a community of citizen developer types who kind of know what they're doing and you'd like to be able to surface that Azure data to them, you can now do that with Azure APIM. And that's where we think this fusion development team, where a professional developer is really driving and assisting a broader community of citizen developers. That's where we think this leverage really is going to kind of show its value to different organizations. I'm not going to totally read everything on this slide, but just for those of you who are still kind of learning more about what's available in Dataverse and Dataverse for Teams, there's a number of features that we can dive into, and I can provide more additional documentation on all of this. And I think we're going to have a demo coming up, so I'm not going to do my demo because it'd probably not stack up against the demo we're going to see. But I'm happy to also answer any questions that you have and just appreciate the time today. So I'll kick it back to Jun and let you take over.
Awesome. No, thanks so much, Wes. Really appreciate it. And as Wes mentioned, we'll have a a Powerapps demo shortly. But before we get to that, I'd love to give it back to Bob to go back to the team's sample browser that he wanted to show.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what? It's perfect because samples, right? We're talking about samples and demos, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. So I am fortunate to be part of the PNP team, that's the Patterns and Practices community, which is really, if you're not familiar with it, definitely check that out. I'll have some links for you going forward. My little job in the Patterns and Practices team is to curate a collection of Teams development samples. So I know you've probably had this link before, but I wanted to show it in a little bit more detail. This is kind of the version 1 sample browser. So we're working on something fancier and more feature rich, but the data is already here, and I'll show you some tricks on how to kind of get around in this. The idea is, if you're going to build something for Teams, or if you're even trying to figure out what's possible, don't start from scratch. Look around. There's a wealth of great samples available from Microsoft and from the community. And this part of the idea is, because the samples are spread around in different places within Microsoft even, I wanted to kind of bring them all into one view. So what you'll see here is, this is the sample browser itself. I'll paste the URL in here so that you can get to it. Basically, the first thing is different types of samples. So there are the app templates you may be familiar with. These are production ready to go full applications, and they're all in here, and you can just kind of browse through those. There are also bare bones samples, which come from anywhere from the bot framework to the community to Teams' own documentation. These are just going to show you how to do one little thing. So instead of having to wade through this huge application that does 20 things and find, gee, how do I do an action messaging extension if I'm writing in C#, for instance? Well, here it is, right? It's all just going to do that one little thing so that you can not have to filter through a lot of unnecessary code. There are also demos, which are not production ready, but they are feature rich enough to show like a business concept and a solution concept. And again, they could be a good starting point. And then there are some full solutions, of which right now we really only have the one. But anyway, just to show a couple of things, client platform, Powerapps is one of our client platforms for tabs. And also on the server side, server platforms, Power Automate is one of the ones. So one thing I would point out is we need more of these, right? So we're really, really looking for the community to contribute. Now, in order to just sort of keep everything on the level, if it's not in a Microsoft repository and GitHub, then we require you to make a pull request to this PNP repo. And the reason for that is, I know nobody on this call would do it, but if later somebody changes the repo, takes it down, maybe puts something not even appropriate on their repo, if we're linking to that person's repo, it kind of is out of our control what's going to be on the other end of the link. So these are curated by me. I don't have time to check everything about them, but we're at least making sure that they're basically on track. And all you have to do here is come in here and make a pull request with your newest cool sample that you'd like to share with the community. And then there's all these different samples here. I'd like to just highlight a couple that haven't been shown off in these calls, and I know a lot of them have been, and continue to work closely with Jun and Dana to kind of pull some of the more interesting samples into this gallery and into the PNP repo. Here are some that haven't been featured in calls yet because they're either pretty small or maybe this is too new. We might get this guy on the call. This is from Hilton Giesenau, is a new one. This is a bare bones sample that shows how to use Azure AD SSO if you have a .NET backend. So right now, the samples I've seen out there all have a JavaScript backend, a Node.js backend. Here he's showing how to do it with an MVC app. Here's one that I wrote showing how to do tab authentication with the new MSAL 2.0. There's a new form of authentication that is more secure that you can use with MSAL. So this shows how to do that and also work on a completely static website. I actually host it on GitHub Pages. Here's a SharePoint framework tab example. Here is a bot that can call the graph. The theme of these is that they all kind of go together in a little bit of shameless self-promotion, but I've been told that this is pretty useful, is this blog series that I wrote, which are basically all about how to call the graph in all the different possible ways of calling the graph. And a lot of these samples back that up. Here's a new one that just came in. I believe this was from Luis Manez, yes. How long have people wanted to just send notifications to users from their Teams apps? Well, there's a new Graph API call in town that makes it possible to do this without building a proactive bot, which was quite a bit trickier. And Luis has got a great sample here. I hope to feature this on a future call that really shows how to do that. Here is a consulting bot, which the feature of this is it shows two different types of interaction. So how would you interact in a one-on-one chat versus a multi-user conversation? So that's a sample. It's a full demo. Here is task modules. So if you've ever done SharePoint framework development, one of the cool things there is you can bring those solutions into Teams. And now you can do that with a messaging extension. So this shows how to do that. And then this is an oldie but favorite of mine. This has been around for a while now, and it's another Luis Manez one, actually. What he shows here is how to tag your teams using the SharePoint term set metadata so that people can more easily find your team, and then you can put the tag editor right into each team so that people can edit those tags. So just a few samples that maybe haven't fully been publicized that I wanted to point out. And finally, I'll point you to this, which is the main PNP landing page. And this really points to the entire PNP effort in all their initiatives, including community calls like this. So there's this is the call we're on right now. There's a ton of other calls, and I know they'll talk about that usually at the end of the day or at the end of the session. But anyway, just pointing you to all these different resources. And that's about all I had to say for now, but I would love it if you came in, try the sample browser, and then click on this little contributing link right here, and it'll point you to all of what to do if you have a sample and the full contribution guidance, or if you have an idea for a sample. Recently, somebody asked for a better SSO sample, and they put it in our issues list, and within a week, 2 MVPs or 2 people in the community had written awesome samples that satisfied their issues. So it really is a great community. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Jun. Thanks for the opportunity to share that with the team.
Yeah, absolutely. This is awesome, Bob. No, thanks for sharing. And we'll share out all these links on our follow-up blog as well, because I know not everyone has access to the chat pane. So thank you, Bob. And like Bob said, please do contribute. We want to see all these amazing samples come through. So pivoting back to Teams and Powerapps, I'd love to turn it over to April now, who has built out an amazing holiday-based demo that she'd love to share us.
Cool, thanks, Jun. And yeah, so Bob, I have some samples I need to put in that repo there. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I was gonna hit you up after the call because I know you have so many awesome samples. So you're gonna show right now, right? I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna show one. So I thought I'd stick, since it's almost the holidays, with a holiday theme here. And really, what I'm trying to do is show like the power of what Wes was just talking about with Dataverse for Teams. So I want to show the 3 main components. So I'm going to show a Powerapp for a Secret Santa giveaway contest. And I'm going to show the back end of how there's a Power Automate flow that's going to send notifications via Teams to the users to let them know who they've been matched with. And then also, just for a little extra piece of functionality of this, we have a Power Virtual Agent bot that's you're going to be able to talk to and get gift ideas for the person that you're matched with. So kind of showing all of the pieces of the stack. So crossing my fingers that the demo gods are in my favor today, since this is a live demo. So first of all, I thought I'd do a very quick overview of how do you even start building, say, Powerapps within this. So there is, like Wes mentioned, a new Powerapps application specifically for Teams. So you would go and click on that there in the left rail, and that will open a fully baked Powerapps editor just for building these Dataverse for Teams applications. So if we go to the Build tab, you can see that these environments get created per team that you associate it with. So I've created a team here called Secret Santa. So if I click on that, I can see on this Built by this team tab, everything that I've built related to this Secret Santa solution that I've built. So I can see I have a Secret Santa Canvas app. I have that Power Virtual Agent gift idea flow. I have my chatbot, and then here are my tables. So that's the data source. Now, one of the biggest benefits of Dataverse for Teams is the fact that we can leverage the true relational database and all of the benefits we get with the Dataverse for Teams system. So I can see I have 3 tables. So it's a really simple solution here. So I have my events in a table. And one of the things I love about this is the editor is really kind of modern SharePoint-esque. So we can see, the entities and the columns and relationships and views, but if we click edit data, I can see all of my data in here for the events that I currently have, and it looks, I can edit it in line. So that's the power and the benefit of that. Now let's just walk through the solution. So you can see that I was able to deploy this actually here in the left rail. So I have a Secret Santa application that's going to load. Just shows some visuals, like you can move stuff. So Santa's ice skating around here, and then that's going to take us to the management screen. So main things we're trying to accomplish here is listing the events that you can be a part of. Because really what I'm trying to do with this is have it as a one-stop shop to where for different groups or people, organizations within your business, you can have different gift exchange or Secret Santa events. So you can join different ones and they'll show up here in your My Events. You can see things like when the event's going to be, what the budget is for the gift, and if the matches have been drawn yet. And then we can see the different events that we could join. We get a Teams-esque experience here where we can see, well, who's currently participating in this event. So I can see if it's something I want to join. Hover over that, I can see their name. So like Bob's participating here in the HR department gift exchange. And I can go in and join. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch over here to the preview, and we'll just walk through a scenario. So say I want to join the IT department Secret Santa. I can go and click our join button. It'll take me to the screen where I can sign up. It's going to pre-fill some information. So I'll just put in an address and I'll put in some things I like. So this is kind of what's going to power that engine in the back end. We can give gift suggestions. So I'm going to say I like singing, right? So on the left, you'll see we have some details about this again, so I can know what the budget is, so I know what to expect, the max participants, when the deadline to sign up is. So, it'll kind of restrict what's shown here if it's past the deadline to sign up, and some details. So I'm just going to click this checkbox, and that's going to register me. I'll see a confirmation that I'm all set and know when we're going to get the match results. So now I'm going to go home. So now that's going to show up here on my Events section. Now I'm both participating in the HR and the IT gift exchanges. Now, how do we actually draw the matches and get that notification? So to do that, we're going to go here to Manage Events. And I'm going to click on, say we'll do this IT one. And we'll just put this in edit mode. And I'm just going to select this Draw Names button. So this is going to, in the background, do some fairly complex logic to loop through everyone that said they want to participate in this and match them up. So it's doing things like making sure that you're not matched up to yourself, right? So that's going to load, that's running in the background. Now I should get a notification. You see something popped up here in the chat. So I'm going to click on my chat message, and we see I have an adaptive card from the Flowbot. So this is happening behind the scenes. I get a notification that for the IT department Secret Santa, I've been matched with Henrietta Mueller. I can see her contact information, so I know who to send my gift to. And I'm even getting a link to some gift ideas, to a Power Virtual Agent bot, so I can get the gift ideas. So let's see how the interaction with the bot works. So I'm going to click here on the left rail, and I see I have this Secret Santa gift helper. First thing I'm going to do, I want to make sure I'm spelling her name right, because I'll need that for my bot. So let me just copy her name there. And we will go over here, back to my bot. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to ask my bot, say I want gift ideas. Okay. My bot's going to call, it's going to respond to me. And this is all built with Dataverse for Teams and PVA, low code, no code needed. So it's going to ask me, well, who's this for? Who are you trying to get gift ideas for? So I'll type in Henrietta's name. It's going to call back, and it's going to look at that Dataverse for Teams tables that I have, and it's going to return the keywords. So what we've said that we like when we register for this, and return a link to shop for that in Amazon. And actually, I think I forgot to put what Henrietta likes. So let me try someone else. I'm pretty sure Bob is in there as well. And I did fill out a like for him. So we're going to do a search for Bob. There we go. And I'll just copy that Amazon shopping URL. And I'm going to get some instant gift ideas for Bob. I know he likes guitar a lot, so I can pick out some nice accessories for him. So kind of a fully functioning, fully baked solution that we have here using Powerapps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, all within Microsoft Dataverse for Teams. Now we'll take a look at some of the backend and kind of what's going on here, some of the logic that we see. A lot of this is in the draw names button. So this is where some of that complex, like how are we deciding, for example, just to get unique people and assign those. So if I expand out our formula bar here, we can kind of see how complex and some of the stuff that we can do within Powerapps that looks almost like full code-esque. The first thing I'm doing is I'm using a for all, which is a way to do a loop like we would in traditional code. So I have a collection of the people that have signed up, a local collection for this particular event. So I'm going to loop through those, and I'm going to put that out using the collect function to another collection to pair them up. So one of the things how I'm doing this is getting the unique receiver. So I have a database in the background. If we kind of pop back over to this real quick, I'll show you how that works. We have those 3 tables, if you recall. So I'll go back here in the built by this team. We see we had events. So those are the events that show we have participants. So this is where when you click that join button, it's going to get outputted here to this participants list or table within Dataverse for Teams. So I can see there's everyone that's signed up, their mailing address, and then that's the like information. Now I have another table for pairs. So this is where I'm going to click that button that I was just showing in Powerapps, and it's going to match people up. So when I ran that before, you see that it took everyone that participated. It has a giver column. So that's the person that will be giving their gift. And then it has a receiver. So it paired them up. So we each have someone to give a present to and someone to receive one. So that's what's happening in the background here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter the gallery of people that have signed up for this, right? The collection there. And I'm going to say where the receiver's name is not equal to the giver's name. So I can make sure I'm not matching someone up with themselves. We have another function here that's available in Powerapps called shuffle. So we want this to be random. So shuffle is going to allow us to pass it in a data source, and it's going to randomly kind of mix up the order of that. So I can combine that with our first to get one unique person as the receiver from that particular list. So that's going to add that into a local collection for me and match those up. Now what I want to do is I'm actually passing in Power Automate this data of the pairs to Power Automate. To do that, I need to convert this to JSON because I'm going to pass a JSON object to Power Automate so that it can go and loop through that and notify the people via chat like you just saw. So I'm going to create a collection based off of this called collection JSON pairs and format the values as a JSON object. So you see I have my squiggly bracket here. I'm just mapping up the values with data that I need to pass to Power Automate. Then how this is working, I'm removing as I match someone up in that collection, I'm removing them so they can't be picked again from the collection. Now I'm doing one more for all where I'm going to patch to that Dataverse for Teams table of pairs the data that was in the collection of the values and the matches. Now here's where we're actually going to go and call that flow. That's going to notify the users of who they've been matched with in Teams. So I have a flow called Secret Santa pair notification. So I'm going to do a .run, and I'm going to pass in JSON using the JSON function in Powerapps. I'm going to take that collection and just pass it as a JSON format of compact. So now the flow can kick off and kind of get started with that. And we can take a quick look as well at this flow here. So I'm going to go to Power Automate, and we will edit this. Okay. So now that this is being passed over as JSON to this, so what this is going to do, the trigger is going to be for Powerapps. So I'm executing this particular flow from Powerapps itself, and it'll load up. There we go. So I'm going to put in that JSON input into a compose, and then I'm going to parse that JSON. So with the parse action, we can pass it in inputs, and we can generate from a sample. So I just kind of put a sample of what my JSON block will look like from the Powerapp. And now I'm just going to loop through that. So I'm going to loop through all of the results from this JSON, and we're using the post a message as the flowbot to a user action within inside of Power Automate to take whoever the giver's name is within this loop, and then we're going to give them some information about who they've been matched with and their email address and address. So it's really as simple as that. That's what's going on there. We'll just go back to the app and look at that draw names. So that's pretty much it. Just calling the flow and clearing out some values. So that's probably the most complex logic of the entire application that you're seeing here. Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much all that I had for the demo. Hopefully, it kind of showed you how all of these different pieces in Dataverse for Teams can mix and match together and give you some ideas of how you can use that. And one of the cool things too is, as Wes was saying before, these are kind of responsive out of the box. So I can see I have it here taking up the full real estate of the screen, but I can go say have this also embedded as a tab within a team. So I have my Secret Santa team in the general channel, and I have the same app embedded here where it's taking up slightly less real estate and it still responds and works correctly. All right, so I guess I'll give it back to you, June. I don't know if we have any questions or anything, but that's really all that I had to show for that demo.
Wow, this is really freaking awesome. Thank you, April. And I think I heard you're going to be uploading this pretty shortly, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I want to. This is one of the things I want to put in that sample, the repo that Bob was showing. Yep.
There you go. Yeah. So if folks on the call are anything like me, I'm procrastinating on all my Secret Santa stuff and like setting up those events. So you can always go to April sample, and that'll help speed up your Secret Santa planning. So thank you, April, so much. So we're at the end of all of the topics that we wanted to cover today. So, I'd love to open up the floor for any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to either, put those questions in the chat, or, if you would like to, come online, use the raise your hand button, and we can kind of go through any questions that you may have.
There is a question in the chat. Seeing Teams commands in the new PMP PowerShell module, where's the Microsoft Teams module heading? And they have an example in GitHub. Is that something?
Vesa here. Let me
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the official Microsoft Teams PowerShell commandlets are coming from the Microsoft. They're the official commandlets, and they are being invested. And there's a team which is evolving those one step at a time. Now, the PMP PowerShell is a super traditional, has existed 6 years already, and that's a community-driven open source commandlet, and basically then the community members, MVPs, and community people just felt that, well, since I already have this module, why wouldn't I actually just give or add some of the Teams operations in this one as well? From your consuming perspective, you can choose which one do you want to use. It's just a matter of making a decision. If you don't feel comfortable about the open source, please use out of the box provided by Microsoft. Those are the latest one. I know that the PMP PowerShell modules do have additional commandlets already for Microsoft Teams, which are not yet in the Teams side. And that's because open source typically works faster. But again, then there's no support provided by Microsoft. So it's just to be clear on the difference on that. Hopefully that answered the question.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question regarding exporting and importing solutions between tenants. Is it possible, or is it on your roadmap?
Assuming you're speaking specifically about Power Platform, so there is the ability to do that and I'll let April jump in here. She's as familiar with the back-end stuff as I am. There is the ability to do that with the full Power Platform application, so like the web clients. With Dataverse for Teams, I think there's some limitations right now. April, are you familiar?
Yeah, so right now we can't export and import across tenants with the Dataverse for Teams. We can, like export the team solution file so that we can move it and like pin it like you saw me doing in the demo, so that it's not tied just as a tab. But right now, I'm not sure about the roadmap. I think that's something I believe that is on the roadmap to be added, but as of right now, we can't export and import via cross tenant with these. So that'd be something that we would need to offload this to the full Dataverse functionality to leverage the solutions and being able to, like in the demo I showed, have one solution that contains a Powerapp, flows, and PVA.
Yeah, but and I can follow up on the roadmap item in particular. I believe so, but don't hold me to it yet. So let me actually verify that.
Yeah, it's in the release notes that it's planned for GA later, but it's not in the current preview.
Yep.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I see another hand raised.
Hi. First of all, thank you. April, thank you very much. You're doing all the women here proud. My question would be, it was heavily based on Powerapps, actually. I'm finding it really easy to find very simple examples of how it works and very difficult ones, but nothing is good enough for intermediate. Do you have any recommendations where it explains a bit in more detail the functions and everything that you used in there native to Powerapps, actually, where I could work on this from an intermediate kind of standpoint? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Yeah, good question. There's lots of, obviously the Learn documentation kind of walks you through a lot of that. A lot of the hard stuff is just knowing what formulas are there and when to use them. There's a great resource on docs.microsoft.com that lists every single formula that you could possibly use in Powerapps and, explains it at a high level and shows you some samples of how it's used. So to me, like that would be a good, step for the intermediate level, is to really get a good feel for the formulas and what's available and like when to use collections and all that. So, and then also the Power Users community. If you're wanting more like app samples themselves, if you go to powerusers.microsoft.com and the Powerapps forum, people post in the community all kinds of app samples that you can look from, and kind of all from like easy ones to hard to the middle of the line type functionality. So you can install in yours and kind of see what they're doing and, learn from that. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. Thank you very much.
We have another hand raised.
Hello, everyone. Apologies as I arrived late if this was already answered. What specific licensing levels for 365 is Dataverse for Teams included on?
It's included in your Teams licensing. So, I would say most of your Teams licensing. So I don't know if the first line workers, that includes Teams, but like your E3s, your business premiums, things like that includes it. Now, that when we say includes it, that means you can, leverage the database, so like the Dataverse for Teams database and all that. But you still, if you're in Azure API management, but if you're still wanting to do some other things that would be considered premium, like a custom connector, like, those premium connectors, that will still require an additional license. But just to use, like the Dataverse for Teams database, you don't have to pay additional licensing. It's included in your Teams licensing.
Okay, so that's included in the G3 licensing for GCC then?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. It looks like we got some more hands raised.
Hi. Thank you so much. You guys started this community. I'm new to Power Platform and I'm trying to develop my skills. I just have a question. This could be an idea also. Is there a API calculator that is available wherein we can calculate how many APIs are there for the flows that you already have or that you're planning to create? Because will be creating around 600 flows for one of our customers, and all of them will be talking to SharePoint.
I don't know, Wes, if you know about that. I'm not sure that that's available.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think Wes may have dropped off, but
okay.
we can jot that down and see if we can investigate.
Sure, or maybe if there's an average or if there's some calculation with your experience, you guys are already experienced, anything that can tell that certain amount of flows or certain amount of connectors may have these many APIs?
Well, I know if you're talking about like what, connectors and stuff are you using within the apps and the flows in your environment, those type of analytics are available in the Power Platform Admin Center. And additionally, there's something called the Power Platform Center of Excellence, where
Yes.
you can gain additional insights into, connector usage, calls and all of that.
Right. I did create a COE, so I did create a dashboard, and I tried using that under Power BI. That gives me a little bit, but not the API calculation. So I did try that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that as far as to my knowledge, that's about the extent of what we can get there as far as the analytics.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. No problem. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that's all.
And Michael, looks like you have another question.
Yes, thank you. I'm preparing myself for an exam regarding Power Platform, and I found there a lot of, or at least one big topic about assigning roles to the CDS, Common Data Service, or now it is called
Dataverse.
And is it still valid in a Teams environment, or can we just skip it and we shouldn't worry about assigning roles and all those security things?
Well, it's different in the Teams environment for Dataverse for Teams because it's going to leverage natively like your Teams permission groups. So we have our owners, our members, and guests. So it kind of out of the box will take whoever is in the team that you're deploying the app to and leverage that. Now you can do some more granular role stuff still. So I think it still applies in some ways to Dataverse for Teams, especially if, that's good concepts to know, especially if you want to like move it offload it to the full-fledged version of Dataverse as well.
Okay, thank you.
There was also a question in the chat. When a new Power App is created, we move it from default environment to the production environment once ready to share. Should we also be moving the associated flows to a production environment, or will leaving those in the default be okay?
I would package everything. I would use the solutions mechanism, which allows you to create a package of everything included in the solution. So if that includes flows, if it includes PVA, package that all up together and move it from your different dev, test, prod environments as one package, just for, ALM and keeping it all, separate would be the best practice in my opinion.
Awesome. And I think we may have time for just one more question.
I am new here, but I do have a question. I worked on one app so far as a beginner, and one of the roadblocks we had was with our external users. Is there any guidance or advice or restrictions that you can advise us of as it pertains to external users within our team environment?
Are you mean just like in Teams in general? Or are you talking about like building Power Apps within Teams? Just to make sure I'm
building Power Apps.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so Power Apps, really the scope is meant for your tenants, within your tenant. You can, if you need to share with external people, you can enable Azure B2C so that you can authenticate with them. Now, the only issue with that being, if there's any licensing needed for that, the licenses has to carry over, or you have to give them a license for that. In scenarios where you truly need, like, say, maybe even anonymous or external application, there is another thing called Powerapps Portals that's kind of its intention. It's like kind of more of a public facing app scenario on the Power Platform for Power Apps, where you can have anonymous or guest access in that. So really, for normal Power Apps, Azure B2C is your only option for getting that external access. If you need it, more scale and maybe anonymous, then Powerapps Portals would be something I would suggest looking at.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're just at time. So thank you all for joining, and a big thank you to all our presenters today. So yeah, so just to really to recap really quick, please join our event tomorrow, the Learn Together event that Daisy went over. Please do contribute to the team sample gallery that Bob showed, and please do check out the awesome map that April showed us today. So thank you all. We'll do a recap in a blog post and upload this recording onto our YouTube account shortly. But again, thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of the month.